Hi, I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Sam.
And we're Yesterday's Tech. Welcome to the Pixel Pie podcast.
And hello, welcome everybody. Welcome back to the Pixel Pie podcast. My name is Scott, and for those that are returning, thanks for coming back. And those that's the first time, this is, like I said, the Pixel Pie podcast, where I find someone for us all to sit down and have a bit of a chat with, someone we can get to know a little more. My thing is the retro gaming, but specifically Game Boys. And you know, the people we always talk to are always people that are players, collectors, modders, craftsmen, you know, tinkerers, makers, you name it. If it's got a Game Boy and it's probably on Instagram, which is where I seem to stalk most of these people, you're going to love it. So, before we do get on to this guest for the episode, just going to refer you to my sponsor, which is retrogamestore.com.au. That's the URL. Also found on Facebook and on Instagram. I get pretty much everything I purchase from Craig at retrogamestore.com.au. I've got, I think about 10 or 11 of his beautiful acrylic stands in the mail in Aussie Post, somewhere between Victoria and Queensland right now. I can't wait to have those. I'm starting to gather Game Boys. They're sitting around my bench. I want them all out. I don't want them in boxes where I can't enjoy them because they cost me a lot of money. I love to look at them. So, Craig's hooking me up with those. Craig's got a whole bunch of other stuff there. You want to refurb a Game Boy, you want to build from scratch, you know, you want just a new screen, you just want some fresh buttons, everything you need, Craig's got. A bunch of other stuff to do with retro gaming, controllers, power supplies, all different support for consoles. So, go check him out. There's also a code until I think you're on the 30th of June, but don't stress, we'll get another one out of him, which is Pixel Pie. Enter that at the checkout and you'll get 10% off. Okay. Good stuff. All right. So my guest is my guests. Let me clarify. I have two guests with me on this episode, and it is Sam and Kelsey from Yesterdaystech. And I'm just going to bring them straight in. Guys, how you doing?
Good.
Fantastic.
How's sunny Adelaide going for you guys down there?
Too hot. I actually had to put on a shirt.
Oh, no, that's no good.
Just for you, Scott.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm in Queensland with a bit of rain's cooling down, so that's nice. Now, I think we kind of discussed a little bit before I kind of hit you up, and I sort of said you guys are kind of the Brangelina of Game Boys. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean,
they're divorced now, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, they got a nice fruit salad of kids, but I mean, like, that could be applied to Game Boys, I guess.
Yeah,
so.
it could. All right, I won't go there again. I think almost everybody I've interviewed, Yesterdaystech comes up. And that's not just sort of in Australia, it's internationally. And there's always a comment on the guys from Yesterdaystech. They basically kind of hit me up with a few other people, and it seems that you guys were sort of the catalyst for something pretty big over the last 12 to 18 months. So just based on that, do you guys want to give us some idea of where it all sort of started for you? I've been way back through your Instagram, and I can sort of see what's there, but can you give us some idea where this all started? And now you've got a full-time job as yesterdaystech.com.au.
Well, it just started with the DMG. Probably 2 to 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
We were actually going on a trip up to Kelsey's parents' house out in the middle of Whoop Whoop, and we're just kind of going through. She's a little bit of a collector, just borderline hoarder. But she had 3 boys that grew up in the 80s, so there's a lot of kind of cool memorabilia from like the 80s, 90s. So we just kind of happened across a box of couple of Game Boy games. I think it was Pokemon Yellow, like Mario Land 2.
Nintendo 64.
Yeah, the DMG. And I think
all of them were broken.
Yeah, everything was broken. So that's where the
Right.
kind of pull and tinkering thing comes from.
Yeah, it was like,
Um,
it was like Christmas, and you were just sitting at the table all day, ignoring everyone because you wanted to see what was inside this old Game Boy and try and fix it. And she just kept supplying him with like hot chocolates, and he was just like in his element. And I think something
Yeah.
just
Big
switched
in
in
I don't
his
know.
brain.
Best Christmas
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah. It was
Pretty
like
much.
a weird, I think just good happening because I've always been somebody that likes to pull things apart. Kind of like Natalie, except I have no clue what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Um, That's the big difference. So I noticed, like, I think I've always had like a fancy for like retro tech and stuff. Like, I had like a really old school record player and all that kind of stuff. Like, I just like old tech, like vintage stuff.
Yep.
I don't know why, it just really takes my fancy. So then
Yeah.
when dug out this broken Game Boy, and I'm like, holy cow, like this is awesome. It's like retro DMG, which is a little bit before my time. I kind of grew up with the color.
Yeah.
And I saw it was in kind of like rough shape. You know, 3 teen boys were like throwing it around, so it was pretty beat up. And,
chucking
had
wobblies and
yeah,
stuff.
fighting over it and all that. Probably. So
Yeah.
I kind of just like tried to refurb it, and that's kind of where it all started with the retro Game Boy stuff.
He was meant to fix it and sell it for her, and then he just kept it. And she's just like, no, whatever makes him happy.
Yeah, I fixed the classic dead lines with an iron.
Yeah, right.
Like literally not a soldering iron, just like a clothes iron, just like remelted solder. So that one's still floating around and kicking along.
I think we ended up repainting it.
Yeah. The DMG is like when you say getting inside them, having a look around. I've been inside, you know, like the DMG, the Pocket, the Color, and the GBA, and you do start to see that. Like I did my DMG backlight with the Biver, and it's like everything's big, and it's sort of like you can imagine like, you know, some, I don't know, Japanese dude or lady just sort of like just pumping parts into it and stuff. And by the time you get to a GBA, you're like, no, this was done by robots and stuff. And you really start to see that technology advance as time goes on. So there's a sort of comfort inside a GBA, inside a DMG. You're like, I think I could probably fix that or whatever, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, you can actually handle the parts.
Yeah. Okay, so you got this one DMG and you didn't get rid of it and you kept it. And I mean, where do you go from there? What was the timeline over between there and, hey, I think I can make some money off this, and Kelsey sort of signing off?
Yeah, that's a bit of a journey, but
I don't know if you really remember it. It kind of happened so fast.
The first bit happened, quick. Because it was kind of like I fixed the first DMG, and then I was like, okay, I really need to start feeding this. Like I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, this is more like an escape at this point. You started the Instagram just for shits and gigs, basically.
Screwing around. Yeah, I basically was dumping like kind of my refurb photos in a few Discord servers and just on friends. And Kelsey came up with the idea of actually starting the Instagram, Yesterdaystech, because she thought it'd be a good idea if I just put it somewhere, just kind of cataloged the photos, just for my own sake. Like we did not think there'd be any kind of audience that would grow there or whatever. It was just a catalog. And I was just buying some Game Boys from eBay Japan, because you can kind of buy them direct from Japan quite cheap, broken. And that's kind of exactly what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to refurb and restore and just kind of check that little fancy box off that I had. And then I think by the time I'd refurbed a couple of Game Boys, that's when we started noticing the retro scene on Instagram a little bit more, specifically the Game Boy stuff. And specifically people like Kiki Stardust, who are like drawing on Game Boys and doing the artwork on Game Boys with all the Posca pens. And I'm sure Kelsey can tell you more about that.
Well, we just thought it would be fun to paint on them, I guess. We didn't actually think any kind of monetary gain would come from it, or if I'd be any good. We just thought it'd be fun, and then I don't know, it just kind of turned into a bit of a blur from there.
It was just like, let's just give it a crack. Like Kelsey's an artist, I like tinkering, so we just tried to merge the two together to kind of, I guess, chip in our own little kind of piece of Game Boy package into the scene, saying like, hey, we can do the painted Game Boys and the refurbs and all that too. And I mean, that's still at this point, we're just doing it for fun. And I think it didn't really click that maybe there was more to this scene in terms of monetization until we actually had people asking to buy the Game Boys that we were teasing. Just with some of those really pockets and colors that we drew on. I think we did like a couple of Pokemon, a couple of Dragon Ball ones.
Yeah.
And yeah, we had a lot of interest in that. So we just kind of threw them up on eBay as an auction. And that's the only time we've been on eBay.
Yeah.
And yeah, they kind of went like hotcakes. And we're like, holy cow, all right, well, this is self-funded the next project.
Yeah.
And that's when we kind of wanted to go down the whole polish route where we're like, okay, how can we kind of take this to the next level?
You wanted to make something with your own hands, essentially.
Yeah.
You didn't just want to fix them, and it wasn't enough for him. He needed more.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, how can I, like, that's when it became, how can we kind of like start refining that kind of physical artwork on Game Boys a little bit further? And that's when kind of Kelsey and I really came together to kind of create that first kind of chapter in Yesterdaystech, where she did the artwork and I did all the paint and the clear coats and the cut and polishes and stuff. So,
and you guys got in a really great time, you know, sort of 2018, 2019, you know, like you could probably pick up a DMG for sort of like $30-40, and you know there was less of a worry about, well, this has got to work, you know. People are buying, you know, big boxes from Sendico and stuff now, but you guys sort of got in when, you know, before it kind of really blew up, I suppose. And I mean, I suppose what you guys are sort of doing these days is a lot of the sort of the casting and, you know, things like that. So that's a big step from, hey, we'll cover the casting a bit more, but that's a big step from, hey, let's paint up your mum's old Game Boy to, hey, let's make buttons and cartridges and shells and stuff. We might cover that a bit more. Now, Kelsey, you as you've said, you do a lot of the art for the Game Boys. You are an artist. You have your own Instagram, Gloom Reigns, which is sort of separate from Yesterdaystech, but probably people don't quite realize how much you are part of Yesterdaystech. Like, this really is a 50-50 type thing. Do you want to kind of elaborate on like what was what got you thinking, hey, yeah, this is kind of cool and I'd like to be part of this?
Well, I guess the painting aspect of the Game Boys was really fun. I really enjoyed it. It was almost therapeutic in the beginning for me. And it was until Sound kind of was like, he dived right into it. And I was
he's like, more, keep pumping.
Yeah,
I want 6 of these by dawn.
Yeah, in the beginning, he was like, we've got to get like 5 Game Boys done in a week or it's just not worth it. And I was like, holy shit. And I was just like, whoa. And then I think that reality hit you probably the hardest, that me painting 5 Game Boys in a day wasn't going to work. But
and you're like, I'm an artist, I can't work like under this pressure.
I know,
pretty much. That's
pretty
like,
much.
Now you know what I deal with.
Yeah, I was like, I can't work without any kind of, you know, inspiration. And he's like, not good enough.
Yeah.
Go your room.
But
that sounds terrible.
I definitely
no.
Oh, we do joke that I'm an art slave, but I'm not really.
It's what he didn't say that had the most effect on you, I suspect.
Yeah, I guess. I definitely like, you know, reconnecting with my childhood and nostalgia that was associated with it. I kind of left games behind a little bit. And it was really fun going back to that. And then I think just going into content creation and doing the retro art sort of side of it was something that I was really good. Not, you know, I wasn't really good at it, but I liked doing
We loved
it.
playing with the Posca Pens.
That
was a new medium for you.
Yeah, I love the Posca Pens. I mean, I only really experienced them with like surfboard kind of resin art. And so doing them on a physical Game Boy was like, oh my God, like mind blowing.
It was, it was challenging, wasn't it?
What's a Posca Pen? Can you explain that to us? Like how it what it does and how it comes out? And
so basically, Posca Pens are like water-based acrylic paint in like a pen form. And they're primarily used for like multimedia projects. So people use them to draw basically on anything. You can do it on wood, on stone, on plastics. My stepdad makes surfboards and they do art on like the resin part of that.
Yeah, cool.
And they're a pretty big deal. But the issue that we ran into was not a lot of people were doing art on Game Boys or on the plastic of Game Boys. So when we started doing it, we kind of were
trying to figure out how to do it without running into all the compatibility issues with product, peeling, chipping, cracking,
making them durable,
putting over a durable clear coat that plays nice
with
acrylic water-based paints. Like this is a whole 6-month journey.
The reality is people have been doing it since before we've done it, obviously. But Sam was like, we need to take it to another level.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was like a clear coat Nazi, and
Jeez.
you were like, this isn't working. This isn't perfect.
Yeah. What do you use for a clear coat? I don't know about it, stuff like working with RC trucks, like the shells and stuff, and I've used like a kind of 4K automotive clear,
WD,
layer. So do you guys use something similar? Because
no, we never touched the 2K or 4K stuff.
Right.
Mostly just for like health concerns we kept reading into, so we never really got into that. I didn't really feel I was like really set up with the gear at the time to have like proper respiratory protection.
I just got this in a can.
Yeah, like the 2K 2-part, like you crack the can and away you go type deal.
Oh, the one I used was just 4K clear in a can. Just the one can, but look, the quality
of that is cool,
probably questionable. I know the guy had rolled the RC truck several times because I'd weathered it and stuff. So I was curious. I've seen this picture on Instagram of you saying, fully respirated. So it's like clearly it's serious what you're using.
I think yes and no. I think the resin's probably worse than any of the clear coats I actually use. Just a word of warning to anyone using epoxies. Just because it doesn't have the smell doesn't mean it's not going to really harm you. Because a lot of people we speak to, a lot of people that like come to ask me about anything casting related. Like one of my first questions is like, make sure you're wearing some respiratory protection. Tell them the filters they need, all that kind of stuff, because you can chemical burn your lungs, straight up. And I touched that a little bit. Like for probably 2 months, I was kind of getting a couple of checkouts at the doctors with X-rays and stuff, just because I'd, I guess, seared my lungs mildly to the point where I was like, okay, I feel a little bit off, chesty, a little bit, just not anyway. But yeah, back to the clear coats. The big thing with the 2K we found, and props to you because you found one where you didn't have to do it, was we found they were all 2-part systems.
Yeah.
So you'd have to crack the can and basically have to use the whole can in like 3 days. And this is before we had a whole airbrush set up. So it wasn't economical because you'd have to paint like, this kind of ties in with too, like the whole thing about Kelsey saying more Game Boys, more Game Boys.
Yeah. Sort of
to like make it economical. Line. Yeah, you have to be like really using that can fast.
Yeah.
But we basically started with acrylics, which that didn't play well with Posca. Then we went to a polyurethane, which actually did play a little bit nicer with Posca, if you like dust it on. But we actually settled on, and shout out to, because they're an Australian manufacturer and owner, SMS modeling.
I know Scott Taylor. I know Scott Taylor really well. Yeah. I've actually got a little Grogu down there. You might be able to see a baby Yoda. Which he resin printed and painted, and I said, dude, I gotta have it. Yeah, because I used to get into a fair bit of Gunpla, and I knew Scott through the Gunpla stuff. So even the pens you're talking about, there's like Gundam markers, which is the same sort of stuff. You can just sort of apply it on. I think what blows me away 100%. About your use of markers, because I've used a bit, and like you put that pen up, is the amount of detail that you get. So would you sort of do like masking and taping, or would you just kind of hand do this? And what happens when you mess it up? You can't just throw that shell.
I get in trouble.
It's literally just me spending hours and hours poring over a single element of one shell to get it perfect. And I mean, I've got a lot of art and painting experience. I mean, I spent 5 years studying visual arts and fine arts, and I was an exhibition artist for a little bit. So the painting element of this I was very familiar with it already. And it was just finding workaround ways that probably weren't as straightforward to make things work for me. So even if the pens didn't work, I'd find nibs or brushes or
so you could just sort of empty the pen onto something and then apply it in other ways.
And I would use anything. It didn't have to be a brush. I used whatever would work. And the most devastating part of that, I think, was spending hours on a shell, and it's probably why we left the paint shells. Was I'd finish a shell, and then Sam would clear coat it, and the clear coat wouldn't play nice with the paint, and I'd lose all of my work.
Yeah, you're gonna go back in and like retouch it.
I've repainted several things.
And to be clear, we've not had any issues with the SMS stuff. Like that's been fantastic. Scott's clear coats, and all of his products have been like fantastic. If you run it through an airbrush, there's like no problems whatsoever. So that's kind of where we landed.
Yeah, we
but
took a break
it's
from
just the time associated with like prepping these shells, painting
Yeah.
these shells. And at this point in time, when we kind of that point with the envelope push with kind of the Posca and the clear coats and the finish and all that, and the attention we're getting, and kind of with people wanting to like kind of buy it all, we kind of wanted to step up the turnaround time for these kind of things.
Yeah.
And I think we just realized it just wasn't really feasible to do it at that quality. And if we couldn't do it at that quality, we just didn't want to do it. Which is,
Yeah, well, I still want to do it, but it's going to be a matter of me finding my own way to do it, while Sam can also
it'll be less about making money off it and just doing it because we want to do it.
Yeah. It's a big ask. I mean, there's a lot of stuff getting around. The UV printing seems to be the thing at the moment. And that's one thing to kind of do a digital piece of work and just have it like punched over, 75 shells in a few minutes or whatever. Like but to hand paint something, and there's something very special about the bespokeness of a shell that's been like, would you say take, like a Dragon Ball one, was there only ever going to be one of that shell, or would you try and do 3 the same?
I think the interesting thing with UV printing is that it kind of opens up the opportunity to come in at a better price point compared to like the hand drawn stuff. And it's a bit of a trade-off because you don't get the same finish and all that. But I think we could totally see ourselves doing one painted one, which is available to the first buyer essentially on the store. But then also replicating that with UV printing. So that everybody can at least get a little bit of a taste of that. Because the painted ones, they still are a different, like we can show you comparisons after. I haven't got any on me, but we can show you the UV printed Street Fighter one versus the actual hand painted one with the finish. Like it's a night and day difference. In terms of like, just, I don't even need to explain it. I mean, it's night and day difference. So so I mean, like this would still be one that's like very unique and special, but then we could still open up the option for people to grab the design on a shell if they want it.
It's like having like a real Rembrandt or a printed poster. You've still got the beautiful art. You've still got that there. There's a real kind of the UV printed ones I've seen. They've got a kind of matte finish to it, and that just seems to be the way. I think I asked Kelly, I can't put on the spot, like, how does UV printing work? And I did my research, and it's effectively it's still printing ink, but then the UV is really quickly curing it. So I'm not a total idiot. I did go and look that up. So that's super shiny. So that's like painted and then clear coated, right? That's not a UV print.
Yes, no, that's what we did. So
that's amazing. That's the shell that's on your webpage, just sitting in your drawer.
Yes.
Well, we had some very devastating clear coat reactions to this, which basically meant that if you touched it a little bit too rough, the clear coat would.
Well, we had cracked at the point where you put the screen lens on. So that's when we're like, okay, this shell was kind of the final card in us really trying to kind of make these for customers. We've done a fair few before, but then we kind of pulled the pin because it was just taking too long to develop and running too many snags and issues. And
we didn't want to send off these, highly expensive pieces of artwork for people who had this intention to play them or use them or have them in their possession if we weren't 100% certain that they were going to be at least durable enough to touch.
Which is why we like the UV stuff, because it's a lot more durable. And like if we did stuff like this where we began with the polish and the Posca and stuff, we would suggest it only be for display purposes.
And that's disappointing, I think, for people, because it is a cool commodity to have a hand painted shell. And I know that I can do it if I have the time in the future. It's just on the back burner now, I suppose.
That's an amazing looking shell. I personally would be happy just to have that to display. So if you ever like having a garage sale, let me know.
We might be very soon, so when we might clean out a few bits and pieces.
You've got at least one hoarder in the house, so there's going to be a garage sale eventually. Have you considered? I'm sure you have. Is like a clear coat over the UV? Would that bring stuff out and give the best of both worlds?
I think I can talk about. We've been talking to Craig about some UV printing stuff.
Oh, okay, cool.
We think we can talk about it.
Yeah,
We'll message you
I don't think
after
it's a
if we
big
have to cut
secret,
it.
but
Okay.
yeah. So we've been kind of
And I won't.
spitballing how we.
Yeah, you won't.
And he's gonna have to come on and explain all of this.
Yeah, he's on. He's going to be
yeah.
on soon. I keep getting yeses from him now. That's a lot more than maybes.
Yeah.
So that's
Just
great.
add him to this call, and we'll just put him on the spot.
Yeah, I
on
could
the
do
spot,
that too.
Jump in, yeah.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, so we've been speaking to Craig about trying to push that whole UV envelope kind of beyond where it currently is, maybe with a finish or reducing the texture on the actual shells. So there's a lot of ideas that we've been spitballing that we really want to hit the ground running with at some point this year, I think, is our kind of ballpark time. Yeah,
if you guys get some sort of Australian source of UV printed shells, you're going to send me broke. Like, seriously.
I think it's going to happen. So
when we both move, it's going to be easier.
Because you're not far from Nat, are you? You guys are in Adelaide. Nat's in Adelaide. Yeah, that must be cool. It still blows me away what's going on in Australia with Game Boys. Like,
it's kind of nuts, isn't it?
As Australians, we're not sort of patriotic, waving the flag like some other countries are, but there's that still real like, hey, that's pretty bloody cool, mate, kind of thing to see Aussies really giving it a good go. And sometimes that sort of occlusion from the rest of the world is what historically has made Australians kind of do stuff, and the rest of the world kind of goes, what are you guys doing over there? Oh, that's what happens when you're not, having that constant sort of social inertia from like being in the North America or being in Europe. You're kind of off doing your own thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Now, so we've obviously talked about the acrylics and molds and burning our lungs and things, and the polishing, the Street Fighter DMG. Like, anybody can go on your Instagram, Yesterdaystech. There's one that I told you I looked at before called Jungle Warfare. It's like in the first half dozen. It's got to be seen to be believed. To be honest, it's a DMG, and then it's a green DMG, like one of the Play It Loud ones, and it's kind of got this bloody 4 fingers on it. Like, I'm thinking of like
I wanted the Predator vibe with that one.
Oh, okay.
Like that.
I was thinking like I'm trying to remember the movie with Willem Dafoe, and he's like at the end of it, he's like on his knees in the Platoon. I don't know if you remember that movie.
Oh yeah.
He's like sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you've used a couple of bullet shells as the buttons and things like that. Like, it's just, you see that, like, even back then you were like, hey, I can do stuff. And I think we're also happy that you continue to follow that. And then we start moving on towards the casting and the molding. And I think it's very much what you guys are known for. I mean, you look through your Instagram and there's sort of buttons with hundreds of thousands in them and shells with all sorts of goodness in them. So do you guys want to take us through that? And Kelsey, also keep us in on, obviously your hand-drawn stuff wasn't as sort of reliable and successful once it got clear-coated. So how did you sort of stay in the mix once he sort of went out in the shed and started, putting his mask on and things?
I guess I just kind of went back more behind the scenes while we figured out what our next step was. I was more into like the content, the writing. I still did artwork, but it was a little bit more subtle. And then I've started to do like UV designs on Photoshop.
Yep.
And building up more of a catalog of those designs, I guess.
All the apparel as well.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
In preparation for hopefully Craig having a UV printer in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And then like we did do a little bit of like merchandise kind of stuff just to test the waters and see what we could do and how we could push that. But
we definitely had a weird transition period where I think we got a little bit almost like demoralized with some of the painting stuff because we just couldn't quite get it to where we wanted production wise and just the durability and all that kind of stuff, blah, blah, blah. But there was a while there where we never just flipped the switch on molding or casting. It was kind of this thing that kind of slowly built up in the background.
You spent a few months just experimenting,
just playing around with it.
What did you do? Did you just sort of go, were you watching YouTube at 2 a.m. and sort of went, well, that's kind of rad. And then you sort of went, well, let's start with a cube or let's do a coin and let's do a button. And next thing you know, you've got 4 button sets and they were becoming reliable. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was a very torturous time trying to figure out how to cast.
Yeah,
It was,
he just spent like months kind of shut in watching tutorials.
big shout out to Sean, Esoteric Mods,
Right.
because he's actually he's one of the granddaddies of the scene. He's been around a while, but he just gave it a crack on YouTube. He's his biggest honest thing is on YouTube. He's also on Instagram, but
Yep.
he just decided to give button molding a crack.
Yep.
In a random video of his, and I was like, okay, holy cow, that looked fun. I'm gonna just give that a whirl. And
it took knowing what's inside a Game Boy to another level for you. You were just like, I want to make a Game Boy.
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
But I mean, the first thing I did, I mean, I think everybody who's done molding and casting always bites off more than they can chew to begin with, and I went with the cartridge, the actual game cartridge.
Yeah.
Got close a couple of times. One of them, I think the closest one I had looked like Swiss cheese, but
right.
Yeah, we got close. But yeah, I mean, I think it just kind of slowly developed while we were still trying to figure out the whole painting stuff. And then all of a sudden it kind of went from, okay, I'm really interested in this molding and casting thing. Is there something we can kind of do with this? And I think we reached a point in time where we're like, okay, we still want to do the painted stuff and the builds and all that kind of stuff, but it would be cool to offer custom buttons that we make ourselves with our builds.
Yeah.
So that was the first goal for molding and casting, was just to create our own buttons so that we can tie them in with our themes a little bit better. And I think basically every Game Boy we have actually done that we've painted and for customers actually have had our buttons in them.
Oh, that's cool.
But that was just the first goal, was just to figure out buttons. And then all of a sudden,
stick sprinkles in them.
Yeah, and then I don't know, all of a sudden I was like, okay, I want to try and incorporate a little bit of what we're known for, which is the finish. Like, can we incorporate some of these finish elements into like molding and casting? And then that led us to the polished buttons.
Right. So when you say incorporate the finish, were you saying like there's then like a second process, or are these, because I'm looking at the buttons right here and they're like, I'm looking at a B button, which is super duper shiny, and it's some D buttons, some D pads that are super duper shiny. So are they coming out of the cast super shiny?
Essentially, yeah, very close.
Wow, that must be pretty satisfying.
Oh, the first time we, I mean, that's a whole other story as well, trying to figure out the whole cut and polish code when you have no experience as well. But yeah,
basically you were obsessed with everything being shiny.
I am a little bit obsessive with, if I do something, I have to push the envelope just for myself. Like, have to. I don't know why. Like, if I can't reach that 100% point where I'm happy with it, it just drives me nuts. So achieving finishes, I mean, like, we're humans, right? We're like magpies. Like, we see shiny things, we're like, holy cow, that's amazing. Yeah. So that was kind of the whole point with the buttons and the finishes and the clear coats, was to have those nice finishes on them.
And it's got to stand out. I mean, there's no point putting all this time in to punch out 1200 B buttons that kind of look just like every other B button. You know, like, there's this thing going on now where I think it's like Retro Gaming Dad may have semi-kicked it off with the whole polishing clear shells. Like, that is stunning. And if you're going to do something, there's so much, it's friendly, but it's competition as to, like, everybody's kind of out pimping their Game Boys. So
it's like show and tell, isn't it? And everyone's it's definitely quietly one-upping people. So.
That's right. But it's still very supportive. That's the beauty of it.
It's very fun.
But if you're going to ask someone to pay for it, it's got to be something, because I can buy a button set off probably AliExpress or no, I'd buy it from GameStore.com.au for like $6 or whatever, you know what I mean? So it's got to be something special. So chasing that 100% is exactly what you need to do.
And I think that's kind of what we try to do with pretty much everything we tackle, is like, we just want that quality to be there, because I think if we've noticed anything, the scene is like hungry for just good quality parts. Like, there's so much cheap crap that comes out of China. And, you know, I'm sure everybody that's listening to this has received something disappointing that they've ordered off AliExpress or whatever that was like $2. So like, we just wanted to like kind of give our own, like, with the buttons at least, and I mean, at the point of the painted Game Boys, we just wanted to like give something of a good grade of quality back to the scene. So
yeah, for sure. I saw something that's pretty interesting, which kind of tickles my fancy a bit, is the macro faceplate. You've worked with Custom Game Boys just down on the Gold Coast down here. So that's pretty interesting. How did that come out for you?
He just asked. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, he just asked. He's like, "Could we do this?" And I'm like, "I don't know. We'll find out." So
Yeah.
that's pretty. I mean, we kind of. I would consider what we gave him kind of just like the first prototype one, and if he ever
Yeah.
wants more, I think we'll maybe mold more. So yeah, like when sometimes people just we get a lot of mold requests and a lot of art requests, but sometimes people will just come to you and it's just the right time. Like I was looking to cast something bigger at the time. I was looking to move up from just kind of the buttons because I felt like I'd really kind of done all that I could do with the buttons. I was looking to try and push my own personal envelope and get out of the comfort zone and cast some larger stuff. So, and he popped up like, "Hey, I've got a macro player. I'll send it to you. Have a crack." And yeah, that's what we did.
So it's effectively you're creating like a negative, right? So when he gave you the faceplate, like that has to be just like kind of spot on because whatever you put in is going to come out the other side.
Yeah, that's extremely important. A lot of people are surprised that it picks up like all the detail in the shell, and it's like that's kind of what it's meant to do. Like silicon is meant to be like one mirror image of what your master is. So yeah, it'll pick up flaws and all. So you really do want to make like whatever your master is, you want that to be the actual production quality for what you're trying to mold and cast. And it's actually really unfortunate because I think we were actually in a heat wave when he sent that plate over.
Right.
And good on him. He wrapped it in heaps of bubble wrap. But I think because it had been in the mail, the bubble wrap had actually like imprinted on the paint and almost fused with the paint. So we didn't quite get that one to where we wanted it, but we got it pretty close.
You spent ages like
trying to like dial the paint back in. And
what a bummer. But I see here it looks like you've done some attempts or at some color shells. So how's that gone?
Yeah, really well. I think it's gone really well. That's actually the space that we want to push into next is just offer artisan shells. And we've got a lot of kind of interesting things we want to literally throw into the resin mix for those. If sprinkles weren't crazy enough already.
That's right.
We've got a few other things lined up for casting just the fronts of shells. The backs are just a nightmare. Like trying to get the battery cover clip right in silicon, it's a nightmare. So so the whole
I'm really loving this thing where there's a lot of sort of like a colored front and then like a clear colored rear. This sort of two-tone thing that's going on. It's really because you get to see the guts and stuff. Everybody likes to see a little bit of what's inside, but then from the front, you can still have that beautiful UV print or that beautiful shiny gloss finish, whatever you're going for. So I mean, you can probably pick up just rears for, as a reseller and someone that wants to sell a full kit. And then you can sort of just pick and choose your colors and go from there. Just casting, most people probably don't understand. They're probably like, oh, you kind of put it in the thing and you drop it in the thing. Can you kind of, without going, because it's obviously taken you quite some time to make something you can do on a regular basis. Can you give us some idea of what actually casting is?
I'm really bad with the technical terminology.
That's fine.
So
we won't understand anyway. So you can tell us whatever you want.
So essentially, typically everything that I cast with anything. Okay, let me start again. I try to like kind of really bring it into a nice tidy package for you. But there's two kinds of molds. You've kind of got like molds that you have to cut open, right? And then there's two-part molds. So everything we do is a two-part mold. So you've got two halves that come together to create the mold, and then you're injecting into that mold to create your part
through a little hole somewhere, like an entry point or something.
So you get like sprues and like vents and all that kind of stuff to let air out, but we use a two-part mold because both sides of our product are important. Right, we need to you've probably seen people do it before where they just have one half of a mold and then they just open pour into the mold and then they drill out the bottom of their button and stuff. Obviously that's not even remotely feasible for like Game Boy shells or even really ideal for D-pads and buttons because you've got the pivot ball joint on the bottom of the D-pad you need to retain, so you have to use a two-part mold. So essentially what that is, you're creating your negative. So I'll start with my buttons, sorry, you're positive, I think, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
So informative.
So informative. This is the casting guy who has no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I start with all of my buttons or face up, so the pretty side up, and then you kind of build clay around, you create a seam around your button.
Yeah.
So typically just for D-pads and buttons, my seam runs along the posts or the rim of the D-pad, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just a nice tidy place to put your seam. Your seam for a 2-part mold has to go somewhere. You're going to get a little bit of, it's called flashing, where the resin will kind of just edge out of your mold.
Yeah, that's sort of daggy
between the halves
left over.
Yeah. And that kind of like kills a lot of people. So any casters, hot tip listing, get good equal pressure on both halves of your molds if you want to reduce flashing, because that's kind of like the number one question I get asked. That and air, which we'll touch on in a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially we bring two halves together to create the button molds. So it's pretty simple, just like shells and stuff. Sorry, we've got a manic dog at the door trying to get in.
That's all right. You can let him in if you want. Otherwise, he might just stand there.
Oh, she'll ruin the whole podcast.
Yeah,
She'll distract you.
More the merrier.
So yeah, for anything like intricate like shells and stuff, I actually do them reverse. So I'll do them face down in clay.
Yeah.
And if people want to like kind of grasp kind of what I'm touching on here, when I talk about clay, go look at the Instagram, because you'll see on there the Dreamcast VMU. You'll see the clay work on there.
Yeah.
So that's face down in clay, and again, you're making a seam. So I'm making the seam basically where the two halves of the shell comes together, just on that front half of the VMU Dreamcast shell.
Yeah.
And then it's basically the same principle. So you pour the silicone over that half with your clay work, and then you're basically ripping off all the clay and flipping your product over, and you're pouring silicone on the other side.
Yeah.
And the only real difference between the other side is, or on one side, is you need to actually add all the vents and sprues to get the resin in. So that'll all take part on the first pour. So is to basically just let air out, and then you have a sprue where you're basically like just banging the resin in. So when it comes to, sorry, just shut me up, Scott, if I'm boring you with too many of the details. The biggest thing that I had issues with, and I think basically every caster has issues with, is air getting trapped in your molds.
Yeah.
Because obviously if you've got something intricate like a shell and you're just banging resin in, you need to think about where your air's going.
Correct.
Because you could force it into a pocket or a corner.
Yeah.
And then basically you're knackered because you've got chunks of air stuck in your shell. And if you're trying to produce items to sell, all of your yields just go to crap, and you're not selling anything. You can't. You're not even making stuff that you can use yourself. So when you're building a mold, you're thinking, number one, where is my air going?
Yeah.
And where is it escaping? Because ideally you want to build the mold so air can just naturally push out and your resin flow in. So
you have that sort of least path of a resistance, so it just goes that way. Yeah,
exactly. So typically any high points. So when you lay a shell flat, if you intend to cast a shell flat, you can cast it upright if you want. You can cast it however you want.
Yeah,
I cast them flat just because I like to use it. It's just how I like to do it, right? Everyone just likes to do things a certain way.
Yeah.
I just think about high points being like screw posts and stuff like that.
Yep.
So air's going to naturally want to get trapped in those little round screw post holes.
Yep.
So that might be a good place to, one, put a vent in, but two, it's a good place to put a vent because you've got to snip it off and you've got to probably drill it out to make the screw hole anyway.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, sure.
Because if you put a vent in, you're basically filling a space where the screw's meant to sink, right?
Yeah.
But you need a vent there regardless. So, it's kind of the catch-22, right?
Yeah.
But sorry, I'm kind of, Kelsey's looking
that's all right.
casting.
No, that's all right. I mean, look, it's very, it's obviously not easy because it's something that, you guys transition.
It's so hard to explain.
You're fully pivoted from, what you were doing to something very, very different, but still within the same realm. So, look, I just wanted everybody that's listening and that buys your stuff or admires what you do to get a bit more of an understanding of what it's like to cast. It's not a matter of just kind of, I'm going to stick my Game Boy between a couple bits of clay and then tip a hot candle in there. It's far from that, and it can easily be misconstrued or misunderstood.
Yeah.
Go on.
No, sorry, that's right. Carry on.
Yeah. The you mentioned before Born Tinkering, and then you were talking a little bit about shirts and merch and stuff, Kelsey. I did flick through and see a few pretty rad kind of designs and stuff. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I'm not really sure how we got started with the merch. I think we just thought it'd be a fun thing to try.
What about the Born Tinkering? Was that just Christmas Day? Someone said it, and it was.
That was, yeah. I'm pretty sure someone just kept making fun of Sam for like continuously pulling apart stuff he probably shouldn't be, and then trying to fix it. And
I've broken more than I fixed.
Yeah, he broke a lot of things.
That's how you
and we were
learn,
like, oh my
huh?
god.
Yeah.
But I think that just came about as like that's just him. And then he heard it and he's like, that sounds like a slogan. That's a free real estate.
Yeah.
That's kind of where it progressed.
Let's get flags on a ship and
yeah, like that's our catchphrase now, and I can't be convinced otherwise.
Yeah. So some cool shirts and stuff I see on your Instagram there. Is that stuff that's currently available, or what's going on there?
Yeah, I think all of it's available on our website. We use a print on demand company to fulfill all of those. So basically, if people want to go on and they're interested, because obviously most people go onto the website to buy buttons, they might see a shirt that kind of looks cool. We've got a few Born Tinkering shirts. We've got a few like Pocket Rock shirts.
Yeah, I saw that stuff. That's cool.
Yeah, we just thought it'd be fun to test the waters, to see if we could actually make some stuff that was worth buying. And so far everyone's had a pretty positive response to it. We've had a lot of surprisingly a lot more of the gamer girls in the community buying it and posting about it, which is always fun.
Yeah, shout out to Gameboy.7777.
I think she's bought so much.
She's kept our business afloat.
Yeah, she's bought so much merch, and I'm like almost in tears half the time, because I'll see her like order on Shopify and I'll be like, oh my god. And I'll send her a message immediately and I'll be like, oh my god, you don't have to buy our merch. We're like, it's okay. And she's
Thank
like,
you.
No, like,
we can eat tonight because of you. That's
pretty much, like noodles aren't on the menu.
Yeah, Julianne. Shout out to Julianne. I think Kelly said the same thing. She just buys stuff like that. I think maybe I did speak to her, and she's I think she enjoys just sort of being part of the community. And I think she's this kind of like secret Bruce Wayne that just throws money at what she sees is cool, and kind of that's awesome. There's something on here that really interests me, only because, and no one else will be able to see that, but I recently bought this for my daughter. My daughter's 9. You guys see that?
Hey.
So it's a Gudetama Tamagotchi, and it's kind of cool. We've actually turned the volume off because it's so needy. My god, it never shuts up. So you guys got a Tamagotchi thing going on. I mean, it's on your Instagram. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I think we've kind of got a Tamagotchi thing going on.
I see them here in molds. There's something.
Yeah,
beginnings of one.
So that's something we kind of started off with Natalie. I honestly can't remember how it got started. We probably just started talking about Tamagotchis and how cool it would be if we could kind of make something better out of them. And then I think Natalie, she's definitely still doing it. She's designing custom internals for the Tamagotchi. So essentially she approached me about doing a collab project where maybe I create like some funky shells and colors and kind of rework the insides for her so she has more space to work with.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think the idea is, I'll have to show you after, but she has like a full color LCD now for the Tamagotchi. It's like you look at it, you're like, oh my god, it's like phone resolution or something like that. It's insane. And then she's trying to load. She did tease me Doom. She said she was trying to load Doom onto a freaking Tamagotchi at one point.
Goodness.
And she's built like a full custom PCB and all that.
She's a machine.
I think that'll just be ready. Yeah, that'll be ready when it's ready, I think.
We'll wait forever for it because it's so amazing.
Yeah, between her big boy jobs with like all the LED boards, I think she just does the Tamagotchi stuff as like a bit of a wind down project.
Yeah.
So we would love to kind of, I think together bring that one just as a little niche kind of fun thing, like maybe do a limited run of custom Tamagotchis that and it has Wi-Fi, so we want to build in like Instagram like follower counters and stuff. And like basically it's a Tamagotchi, has a lot of smartwatch functionality, but in a Tamagotchi, but it also plays Doom. So
it
I don't know. I've been told a lot of stuff.
Didn't it? It started off as like, wouldn't it be cool if we could have like a Christmas ornament Tamagotchi? And then Natalie's like, I can take that one step further.
Yeah,
that's right. Because I was like,
and we were like,
that's right. Because we were talking about doing a Christmas themed Tamagotchi.
Yeah.
And Natalie's like, and I was like, Natalie, can you make a Tamagotchi play a custom jingle and we'll just hang them on Christmas trees?
Yeah, and
she's just blown it out of the water. Yeah, she's like dropped the mic. She's like, this thing's gonna play Doom. It's gonna do it. Yeah, exactly.
We were thinking so far small, and she's just taken it way bigger.
Yeah. I think she's very much a sort of disciple of the way of thinking like Marky Pie, and he's got the VMUs with Sonic and full Pokemon games and stuff on a Dreamcast VMU. So yeah, those people, they're just out there, the SpaceX NASA kind of end of Game Boy, and that's cool. Keep doing it, because I'll just keep trying to buy your stuff eventually. And if you guys can do the shells, then obviously it's that really making it accessible because Nat's now been down that road where with her button lighting and stuff, that she knows how to kind of get things made and understands when I want to buy X amount from a company that makes the boards. And for her to say to you, I need this smaller and that bigger, and you're like, cool, I'm actually doing what I want now. Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm going to sort of leave it open to you guys to sort of talk about whatever you want now. Like, so what else is going on? Like, where's your kind of, do you think you've sort of got it under control and you found a bit of a sort of like a nice steady way of moving through and achieving what you want now, or do you still feel you're a bit behind the ball and you're not, your molds aren't consistent, or you feel like you're winning and you kind of just can't move fast enough? That's probably more like your side of it, Sam.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we would always like to be a little bit further in front from what we are.
Yeah, you're ready every week. You're ready to quit your job just so you can do it full time. You're like, I just need to do it all the time. I just can't stop Game Boys.
Yeah, I think our biggest issue at the moment is keeping up with just kind of the demand on some of the buttons and stuff, while we're also trying to like kind of stretch our legs and kind of do new other things that we can hopefully roll into the business. Like, it's kind of hard developing new products and ideas when you're trying to keep up with everything that's already kind of doing what it should be doing. But it's your own worst enemy, because you're just putting all of your time and work into maintaining existing products.
Because you use a pressure pot, right? For the casting.
Yes,
so how many pressure pots do you have? Like, if you build up for like, I can create this many buttons a week, but then I need to try and R&D on these, that's a big investment to kind of get everything done and have a few pots just on the side.
Yeah, I mean, Kelsey's probably heard me say a million times that I'm thinking about doing a little bit of R&D on this, but I need to use the pressure pot to make buttons, and then it gets delayed. I mean, currently I have 2 pressure pots. I need probably 4 right now.
He'd like 6.
Yeah, I'm probably more thinking at some point this year I will probably have 8.
Yeah, I think the main motivation behind us buying a house is so that Sam can literally have half of it for pressure pots. And that sounds sounds like an exaggeration, but like you're like, we need to get a house now. It's serious this time. We need pressure pot space.
So, we need space. So space is a big issue.
I assume this has to be done like not just in your living room, right? Like these things blow up, or what's the deal?
Yeah, they're kind of bombs.
They can be. They can. Some of
I tell Kelsey they're bombs.
Yeah.
She kind of freaks out a bit.
Sometimes I hear him forget that he's building the pressure up in one, and I'll see him run down the hallway to go like, and I'll be like, did that nearly blow up? No, it was only at like 90 psi. That's only over. And I'm like, we need a house.
Yeah. So
with a room down in the corner of the yard.
Yeah, so I need him to have his own.
It's a separate room hobby. Absolutely. Don't work near your pressure pot.
No.
Oh God, don't do that, because it probably got to be fine. Like, I'm using like one. Probably that's how I operate with anything. Like, you might blow up, you probably be fine.
Yeah, we'd rather the wall blow up than.
Rule number 1: always under pressure your pot. So if you're not maxing the thing out, you'll probably be all right. I mean, I'm using a secondhand one that's seen like a whole lifetime of action.
Yeah.
And it hasn't blown up yet.
Didn't you seal it with silicone, like some really half-assed job, and you were like, it's fine?
Yeah, I've done a bit of DIY work on that one.
And I was like, I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah, just don't tell me.
To come out of it. Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, I mean, like, as far as like kind of putting the business forward, space and like equipment is probably a big limiting factor for us at the moment. So
which we're actively working towards fixing. Like by the middle of the year, we're hoping.
Yeah. It'll all fall into place in due course, I think, with kind of scaling things up and, pressure pots, space. There's all problems we're trying to work out and resolve. So when we get kind of more pressure pots, then you'll see hopefully more readily available like fronts of Game Boy Color shells or DMG shells available on the website. Like that's where we want to go. And just
being in a place where we can have a business and also continue having fun. I think we've both suffered from burnouts because we've been worried that if we don't hit the ground running 24/7, this just isn't going to happen.
I mean, we get a lot of people kind of just checking in with us daily, like, oh my god, have I missed like the Galaxy buttons, the second drop?
Wow.
And it kind of gets, I wouldn't say it's stressful, but it feels like it puts a bit of pressure on you to like not disappoint people, to like just try and, because I actually feel bad when you see people that have been like commenting on like the posts going, I can't wait, like, and you give people a little bit of warning and you drop them and then they PM you like, I missed out. And it's like, like it kind of is a little bit disappointing when people do kind of want your stuff and then they miss out. And so it just put a little pressure. I feel it puts a little bit of pressure on me to kind of like get a wriggle on with like trying to like restock and get stuff done.
So at least trying to increase volume and consistency.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the number one issue we're trying to resolve at the moment. So
that probably leads us into when you're talking about people that miss out, into the Discord that you guys were part of kicking off. Do you want to tell us a bit about that? Because I assume that's kind of the pulse of anything that's going to happen. Yesterday text like, boom, you've got 12 minutes to buy these kind of stuff. But just sort of go more into that Discord that you guys have sort of been part of kicking off.
I mean, fun fact, the Discord got a 5 minutes head start on the Galaxy button release. So, if you don't want to miss the next one, get in the Discord, right? Yeah. But what were you saying, sorry?
Is this the Aussie Discord?
The Aussie, the download retro.
Yeah.
So that was actually just a joint effort between Natalie and Craig and myself.
Right.
And I did the logo.
So which is pretty sick.
It's the Aussie map with the buttons and stuff. It looks rad.
Yeah. I'm very original like that. Sam said Australian and buttons, and I was like, I've got you.
Boom.
Yeah, so I remember pitching it to Natalie and Craig. So we got a group chat. It's called the bowling chat. I don't know why it's called the bowling chat. But I said, guys, I want to start a Discord, and they kind of laughed because they were like, "What, for all five of us, all five Australians?" And I was like, "Well, if that's all there is, that's all it's going to be." So, but the idea behind the Discord was to just kind of, I guess, try foster the Australian community a little bit more and actually create resources.
And connections throughout.
And just network people here in Australia with like how to get this or that. And we've got some stores listed in there, so there's like a little vendor section where people can like go to just,
I think people
grab
forget,
whatever they need.
I think we forget how many Australians are in the scene because the scene's so small and so intimate, and there's obviously so many more modders and Game Boy enthusiasts over the world that you forget that in comparison to the rest of the world, there's actually an impressive amount of Australians doing really exciting things. And for a little continent on, or country on the edge of the world, we're quite a big part of the scene, and I think that was why you guys are one of the Discord. I think this could be a community that would really benefit from having that space, and it so far has lots of fun banter happens over there.
Lots of Australians and Canadians.
Bizarre.
Basically American Australians, the
Americans we
like.
We got this funny thing where we tell the Canadians to park their moose in Craig's little private chat, so they just go and leave like a moose emoji on his store vendor tab.
That's really good. Classic, huh? It's really cool. I mean, like I know that Craig said, come into the Discord, and you also mentioned it. I just can't keep up with social media, Instagram and a bit of messaging. And you guys are just talking stuff, and I'm like, what are they talking about? I get so Craig's my inside guy. He tells me what goes on down there. He kind of
I was wondering how you knew about the Canadians.
That's how I knew about the Canadians.
Don't tell anyone else.
No, that's right. No, that's really neat. I mean, those places need to be there, like you said, to come together and collaborate and discuss and talk about. And it's that kind of like a bar where everybody hangs out, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, come over here and have a chat about this, and you can find what everybody's got in common and really come together. Yeah, cool.
I think the Discord was actually when I realized just how many modders and retailers there were here just for like building to order systems.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys in there that just build Game Boys as like kind of their business. So and then you go, well, of course, like who else is buying these parts, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'll get some. There's always some show notes, and I'll put in the show notes the Discord details as well.
Anyone can.
You don't have to be Australian or Canadian to join.
No, the invites them to everyone.
We call them. Everyone not Australian. We give a role honorary Australian. So.
Very good, very good. It's just a carton to turn up.
Yeah.
If you're not Australian, a carton is like 24 beers. So everything, if you do something wrong, that's a carton. If you do something right, that's a carton. If you get your photo in the newspaper, that's a carton. So the joined cost.
Please no BB.
Yeah, that's right. No BB. Cool. All right. I might sort of move into speaking of like all the good builders and stuff. I always give my guests an opportunity to kind of talk about a few people, and I've sort of previously it's been who do you want to hug, and there's been a lot of hugs, and it's sort of I think anybody's listened to a few episodes now, it's the same names are coming up. You guys, Peg City, Nat. I'm not going to name them because you know who you are and you'll do a fantastic job, but I want to sort of lean more towards the people that are doing it and don't probably get as much sort of spotlight as they could do, So you guys get around. Who do you see? Who's on your radar that you think is doing stuff and could do with a little bit of a sort of get to the front and go show them your wares type?
I see a list.
1 second, I got to grab my list.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry,
it's on my phone.
No, that's
like
all right.
All the people who need spotlight, I'm gonna list them.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, look, I try to pick one each week. So while Sam's off grabbing his list, the one I'm going to pick this week is Bunt _mods, which I think is it's BUNP _mods. Mike is in Ontario. There's a bit of CNC action in there. There's some really nice stuff in there that Mike's really got his own style, and I would encourage anybody to go and see what Mike's up to. And I'm also a big fan of supporting local builders. Like last time I mentioned Tristan, Custom Handhelds. He built for me, and I'm always about, if you've got a local builder, even if you build yourself or you're happy to do stuff yourself, give a bloke a few bucks or a lady a few bucks and let them do what they do, and help them put a meal on the table, and you get a really good quality. And if you're like me, it doesn't end up with all fingerprints on the inside of the screen. So win-win. Yeah. So Mike, Ontario, Bunt Mods, go check that guy out on Instagram. And if you're local, see if he can help you out in some way, or just like his stuff and join in the good times. So Sam, what's your list you've got there?
Okay, I've come prepared. I didn't
have
want to be put on the spot like everyone else. So.
I know. That was so much more fun for me, but not fair.
Okay, so the first person I've got is War Customs, actually. He's based here in Adelaide. He does a lot of insane painting as well. We've done a little bit of work with him with creating like custom buttons and stuff. He predominantly does like newer systems like control and stuff, but he's made stuff for like 2K Games and Bethesda and all that, but he's pretty small and niche in Adelaide still. So he makes some like really, really cool stuff. It actually blows my mind in terms of, he goes beyond like paint and artwork. He actually physically molds stuff onto controllers like barnacles, and for a sea theme, like a Bioshock theme. He does all kinds of crazy stuff like that.
Yeah.
Next person, did you mention, Joseph Thompson, who does the Beskar shells?
No, I did not, but I'm more than happy for you to do so, because
yeah,
I mean, I've got one of Joseph's Beskar shells coming. And I also kind of like, he's like, it's ready to go. And I'm like, so how's those buttons coming along? And he's like, be a couple of weeks to dial them in. And then like within 36 hours, he's like, it seems they dialed in a lot quicker, so you get some buttons. So let's talk about Joseph.
Yeah, so Joseph is kind of doing something extremely new, and he's actually doing laser etching into shells and creating designs and patterns with all that. So I think he started with the Mandalorian Beskar. It's like a rare metal, and he did like kind of a rare metal themed Beskar Game Boy shell. And he's since taken that and done like other themes with like the laser etching, and it's pretty impressive. Like you're etching into plastic, and then he's also using, I believe, paints as well, and he's etching into the paints to create different effects and two-tone effects and all that kind of stuff. So he's doing some really insane stuff, and he's also filling the etchings with like sometimes like glow-in-the-dark pigments or color shift pigments. So he is somebody absolutely to keep an eye on. And of course, his resin cast buttons, his themed buttons are, sorry, not resin cast, resin printed buttons. So he's doing some very interesting stuff.
What's the resin printing?
It's like 3D printing, but you're using
correct, not PLA. Yeah, sorry, my mistake. Yeah, that's the buttons he's done for the Beskar with the Rebel Imperial signals, symbols, and the D-pad and stuff. Yep, cool.
Yeah, so he's doing something completely different, which is why the scene's exciting. Like, because you get people pop up that just start doing insane stuff and turn heads. So he's turning my head every day with what he's doing.
Yep.
I think, just to shout out some of the smaller guys, like Recon 4 Games here in Australia does some fantastic just 2-order builds. So does Tris, custom handhelds. And then just to shout out some of the casting guys. Again, Tris is like starting to dabble with some of the casting, and he's getting some pretty interesting results. Neo, who's doing some really cool SP casting and buttons and all that kind of stuff.
That's Neo Customs.
And Visual Pixel in Sweden, I believe. He has he's started doing a lot of casting as well. I think he's one of the first people I spoke to about just giving him some help with some of his casting, but he's doing some really cool stuff with it now as well. And I think and retrogames.evo, he's doing something a little bit different with his buttons. He's actually taking concave buttons, putting printed images in those concave cavities, and then pouring clear resin over the top. So he's like sealing like printed artwork on buttons. Pretty cool, right?
It's like when you see those spiders in a bit of like acrylic or something or whatever, or resin. So
he's done like marble themes on like D-pads and stuff. So he's doing some pretty interesting stuff as well. And Scruffy, big shout out to Scruffy looking RGB. He's predominantly on YouTube. He does have an Instagram.
Dude. Love him.
He's really awesome.
I always watch his cruising around, buying $3 like Dragon Ball, Famicom carts and stuff.
It's so cool, isn't it? It's like he takes you into like the candy store. Every stream. So he actually hooked me up with a lot of like shells and bits and pieces as well. So massive shout out to him, just to help me with like the molding and casting, because I couldn't find anything that was new, like in good condition. So he actually hooked me up with some brand new in-box stuff. So yes, I love Scruffy. His YouTube is fantastic. It is. If you want to go on a journey with him, go check him out.
There's another dude, Kid Shuriken. They kind of like they hang around together, and same thing, kind of like a Yank living in Tokyo, and just I'm going to this one and that one, and I've got $20. Let's see what I can get. Good little adventures.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kelsey had one.
Oh, my one shout out is Kiki Stardust, just because she's like lovely, and she's one of like the OG artists on shells, Posca artists. And she's part of my little art group on Instagram, and she's always very helpful. She does all the art for like 8-bit aesthetics. She takes commissions for painted shells. She's got awesome artwork. She's a beautiful person, and she's just a really nice person in the scene for me, being not only a woman who it's not as common for us to be in the scene, but also an artist in the scene, and she's just lovely.
Did she do a lot of work with 8-bit aesthetics?
I literally just said that.
Oh, sorry.
You were thinking about saying it instead of listening to me say it. Story of our lives.
Pretty much.
Oh, good. Cool.
Yeah, she does.
Awesome. Yeah, there's so much, isn't there? I know it was difficult for some people to come on and sort of go, I love you all, but like I think we sort of shift towards this. It's a circle of life where you guys were, you weren't always yesterday's tech and you kind of watched other people, and you never know when you might sort of give someone the attention, and they go and lay in bed and think, I'm going to do that, and you start to inspire each other, and this is what it's all about. It's keeping the community strong and healthy, and the more that we get people into that, then the more you guys can collab and make more things. This Discord and working with Craig and Nat, and just the way you guys have kind of all worked together, it's proof that it works. Yeah, cool. All right, well,
for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm just gonna sort of give you a couple of minutes just to sort of wrap it all up. I've got a couple of little things I'd like to sort of say. I'll say this now just before, and I'll let you guys kind of wrap up. So this week, this is a arcade thing. I have a fondness for arcade and consoles as well. But this week in Sydney at the 1989 Arcade Bar, there was a taking of the Wonder Boy arcade world record by Stephen Kerr. Kind of crushed it a little bit. The world record was held for a few years by a Brisbaneite called Neil Cairns, and we love Neil up here. Neil's on the Play It Up podcast, a pretty good friend of mine. And the good thing is that this Tuesday the 6th, I'm pretty sure this will go out pretty quickly, but this Tuesday the 6th on Twitch on the Netherworld Arcade, Neil is going to go for, he's probably going to grab it because he's just put a lot of work in, the Arcade Ghosts and Goblins world record. It's a pretty big deal. Anybody knows anything about gaming, if you're like, hey, what is a game I could get you to play that might make you swear and give up within about 2 minutes? It's going to be Ghosts and Goblins. So Neil's going to give that a red hot go. Netherworld Arcade on Twitch. You can follow along there. And that's kind of all I wanted to say about that. So yeah, you guys have got sort of as long as you like now to sort of just wrap up, maybe thank a few people, or maybe just kind of let us in on any last minute kind of decisions you've made to move in this direction or not, or we can all just say goodbye and keep watching what you guys are up to.
What do you got?
Well, we've got some very big packages coming in the mail. So.
Oh, do you?
Oh, yeah.
Stuff you bought?
Stuff that
pressure
supplies
pots
that we've bought. No, but we've got some very exciting
interesting additives.
They're a little bit more exciting than sprinkles, we hope.
Yeah, we've bought almost everything under the sun. Basically everything we think we can throw into resin, we bought it almost.
Yeah, we've started to look at like artisan creators on Etsy who make their own things to add to resin. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to divulge before Sam starts kicking me.
Yeah.
Looking at people who actually hand make pigments and hand make things.
Yeah, more niche. We want to go more niche.
Yeah, so, I mean, we want to support, artists. That sounds so.
You guys are really delving into the maker world. I know when I spoke to Nat and Craig prior to sort of this endeavor, starting this podcast, and she's like, man, it's the makers. And I totally agree. Like, I'm a big fan of Adam Savage and any of that world. My daughter gets this Tinker Crate every month, and it's all about just taking and creating. And if it doesn't work, that's the second best thing that could have happened to you. And you guys are really good at taking that and showing us that it's about making, the Game Boy is kind of just a canvas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I just want to really quickly shout out to some guys that gave me or us a lot of support early on in the scene, which was, we call it the Game Boy Gang. It's just Jamesy Plays, Next Stop Please, and Peg City 8-Bit. I know those guys get shouted out a lot, but
for good reason, right?
Part of, yeah, absolutely. They were a massive part of I think we all just helped each other stretch their legs within the scene. We're just kind of like a bit of a support system, bounce ideas around. So
egged each other on.
Crazy projects and So I mean, everybody has to have somebody that they kind of connect with in the scene that kind of gets it all started for them. So that was kind of our support group, and I think still is.
Yeah.
Jamesy Plays is a great person to have on the show as well, if you can ever twist his arm.
Oh, I don't have to twist his arm. I've already spoken. Yeah.
Oh,
my biggest challenge at the moment is almost every day I have a running list of I would love to have this person on, and I communicate with them, and then I'm sort of like looking at, I've gone and created this like spreadsheet with time zone formulas and stuff as to how can I get 2 people in Canada on one day, so I'm not kind of chewing up. It's not that much of a challenge, but yeah, it blows me away. These guys are definitely that kind of critical core of what's going on. It just they love to see it all get bigger and bigger. There's lots of communities where people are like, oh, we don't want to get too big because then it's I don't know. That's not just us.
The more minds, the better, right? The more minds, the better in terms of creativity. So
yeah, absolutely.
And I think like healthy competition as well. It always like kind of eggs people on. I mean, that's pretty much about it. But I mean, to kind of put a bow on our stuff, like I think we have one piece of big news coming, I think soon. That we'll hopefully be able to talk about soon. So
like in about a minute, or do you mean like
probably like 2 weeks to a month? So
okay,
hopefully that's gonna come to fruition soon. So hopefully we can talk about that soon. But hopefully
we've got a lot of cogs kind of going behind the scenes. And, I mean, I think when we feel like our content is dipping, the reality is it's just we're working twice as hard outside of Instagram to kind of do things, and we're always working basically, even if our Instagram gets a little bit slow. I think the slower it is, the more we're actually drilling behind the scenes.
And I think as well, if there's anybody out there that has questions with regards to casting, just PM me. Like I'm happy to help out whenever possible. Like I think it's great that people are getting into it. I think it's fantastic, and it's a really fun craft. So if you've thought about it, just jump in and hit me up if you have any questions. So I'm not an expert, but I will try to help. So.
Any other source of a decent shell, which is the end state, as opposed to, like you said, $6 on AliExpress and then hoping that it works. You don't have to hack half of it up. That's anybody. Just get up there and do it. Hey. All right. Absolutely. Awesome. All right. Well, Kelsey, Sam, Yesterdaystech, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I know everybody's going to be stoked to have been able to listen to you share a bit more about yourselves and what you're doing, and maybe have a little more understanding that if those buttons sold out in 12 minutes, that's because it's actually bloody hard, and there's only so much you can do in one day, and they'll just get the next ones. Yeah,
and thanks for having us. I think this is a really good, a great platform. It's really great. There's nothing like it. So
awesome. Yeah, exactly. And the community in general has been so supportive, and we're just always in awe.
Look, this is my little bit. Just keep selling me stuff and I'll keep doing this. Win-win for everybody, I suppose. All right, no worries. All right, we're going to wrap it up there, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. This is the Pixel Pie podcast, and tune in next episode, and we'll have a chat, get to meet someone else that's kind of rad and playing around with Game Boys and making us all spend our money and feel happy. All right, see you later, guys.